The past 12 months have been filled with economic uncertainty for business and individuals. And finally, we head into a post-pandemic world, and our focus is creativity now. During recessions and economic downturns, statistics shows that companies perform better if they invest in skills that allow room for ideas and innovation, which lead to revenue growth and to greater market share. However, there are few resources that can help employees to create creativity, as most of online platforms, they emphasize hard skills. And now we will talk about it. During this session, the CEO of Skillshare, Matt Cooper, will explore how can we do to bridge this gap, creative gap. Matt, it's your time.
Здравствуйте, как дела? Я изучаю по-русски в школе.
I learn Russian. I learned it at my school. I don't understand anything.
So I think that might be the only meaningful thing I remember from 4 years of taking Russian. So apologies for the bad accent, but good to be here, and thank you for having me. So as many of us were sort of on lockdown during COVID, I think we were all looking for new ways to spend our time, and I was certainly looking for ways to expand my abilities. So, cooking is one of the creative endeavors I think that we've all had a little more time for. This is a chicken with shallots recipe from the New York Times. Looks gorgeous. So I figured, all right, I'll try to make this dish. Looks pretty good. Unfortunately, it didn't quite come out the same way that it did in the picture. It did taste pretty good, but I think as we were all looking for ways to find this new time and put it to work, there were some creative experiments that both succeeded and failed. And in this past year of social distancing in quarantine, when your office and your bed, for many of you, are 6 feet apart, we all needed to apply some creative thinking to our lives. And I think one of the key messages that we want to convey here at Skillshare is that you don't need to be a sculptor or a graphic designer or an artist to be considered creative. Creative talents and abilities are something that we all have. They exist in all of us. If you are human, you are fundamentally creative. And just some quick statistics to back that up. There are about 5 billion people in the world who either have a creative profession or a creative hobby. Here in the United States, about 75% of Americans report that they have a creative hobby. Americans spent $1.5 billion last year just on art supplies. And if you look at the creative market on a global basis, it's valued about $2.25 trillion. So anywhere you cut it, the creative market is big, it's broad, and it's something that really is part of all of us. And when we think about creative, particularly over the last 12 months, really creativity is really just another word for resilience. And that's why so many of us have started making connections that maybe weren't there before. We've started baking bread. We've started knitting. I'm learning to knit with my fifth grader, setting new mindfulness goals or fitness goals. And I think we've put this very strange time to work. And sure, we spent a lot of time catching up on Netflix and our favorite shows, but I think a lot of positive things, a lot of new ways of expressing ourselves came from this very unexpected shift in how we spend our time. And so as we heard from members who were exploring different ways to spend that time, what we found is that the creative aspects of what they were doing was very good for their health and really helped counter a lot of the isolation and just the boredom of being on lockdown. So, our top categories have always been illustration, fine arts, graphic design, and we saw a lot of pickup in those topics over the past year. But some of the things that we hadn't seen before was the interest in topics around creative expression, stress relief, anxiety relief, and then we had some pretty entertaining wild cards. Like there was a woman in the Midwest in the United States who was teaching classes on how to cut hair from home. And there's a point where, I started to grow it a little longer than I needed to, and I think I wasn't alone. So, people trying to figure out how to cut their own hair or cut their roommate's hair. We had some pretty entertaining class projects coming out of that one. And then meanwhile, on the business side of things, human creativity has always been a key factor in how well businesses perform during recessions and economic downturns. And I think you've seen that creativity pop up in how businesses have pivoted to handle this new COVID environment. So we've seen restaurants moving, restaurants who never did takeout or delivery are all of a sudden doing curbside pickup, hair salons moving outside or coming to you at your house. Crafters who were, making masks on Etsy. I mean, Etsy saw a massive increase in their revenue solely from people making face masks. And then obviously people selling their knowledge and monetizing their expertise on platforms like Skillshare and being able to make that another meaningful part of how they earn a living. And the numbers certainly prove that out. We have seen creative companies perform better than their peers. McKinsey did a research study several years ago. 67% of companies that were deemed to be creative had above average organic revenue growth, and 70% delivered an above average return to their shareholders. So this, the focus on creativity as a business is not just a nice to have. It's something that really does improve the bottom line and deliver actual results to shareholders. And so when you think about creativity as part of your company's culture, it really needs to be something that's ingrained, not just a one-time initiative or something that you do as a way to engage your employees during a slow week. Employees often fall into this kind of always-on mindset when working remotely. Again, when your bedroom and your desk are 6 feet apart, it just gets hard to sort of create separation in space. And study after study has shown that when you don't have time away from the office, you don't have time to reset, you don't allow new sort of mental connections to take place, you fall into a rut, and that creativity falls to the wayside. But if you can create an environment that allows minds to wander, allows those new creative connections to be made, gives people time and space to do other things and to explore other parts of their personal and professional life, employees are just more likely to stay inspired and productive. And one of the trends that we're certainly seeing in the United States, there was an estimate that 50% of tech workers are going to be looking for a new job in the next 12 months. So coming out of COVID, people are looking for different things, and for you to keep that talent in-house, you're going to have to find ways to give them time and space to do new and different things. And that creativity outside of work will lead to creativity inside of work and help their day-to-day job. And so setting time aside and devoting time to creativity helps keep employees in that right mindset. It helps keep them focused, but also gives them time to explore some of the out-of-the-box thinking that generates new ideas, new products, new services for your business. Google is obviously, they're certainly famous for the 20% time, and they were one of the first sort of widely recognized examples of giving employees time to do creative things outside of their day job. But now we've seen that trickle into lots of different parts of the world. In education now, there's a movement called the Genius Hour for kids. And the idea is, again, similar to 20% time. You give anywhere from an hour a week to 20% of their instructional time open for those students to explore any topic of interest. And just giving them the time to learn whatever they want to learn. It reinforces that process of learning. It may not exactly tie into exactly what the core curriculum is, but again, just by giving them more time to learn things they want, they learn how to learn, and then that carries over into the core curriculum. And this isn't something where you have to devote a whole workday. It doesn't have to be a full 20% time. It can be, an hour or two exploring a new tool or doing a fun creative brainstorming session around a new product. Or, it could be a hackathon. I think startups in particular are good at creating time and space for these types of things. But if it is something that is structured and consistent and deliberate versus something that's ad hoc and reactive, I think you get better results out of it. And what's amazing is just some of the ideas that come out of this time. Gmail came out of the 20% time. That's not a bad side project. If one of our employees came up with the equivalent of Gmail during a 20% side project, that would be we'd be pretty happy about that. And so even if it isn't delivering hard business results, it can reduce stress. It can create that restorative mind space you need to bring the best version of yourself back to work. And you don't need to go on vacation. You don't need to go to a tropical island to recharge. It could just be, could be 15 minutes of knitting to drive that change and get yourself back into a creative mindset. And so, as we come out of this this sort of COVID working world, it is a chance to change how we operate. And there's a quote from Miles Davis: "Once is a mistake, twice is jazz." And so as we think about just all of the strange things that have come out of COVID, a lot of it, again, felt like a mistake at the time. But if we can start to string some of these things together, we think this can actually be a meaningful improvement to how we've worked historically. And so how can you apply that creative thinking to your workplace and embrace all of the the change and the differences and the things we've had to adapt to over the last year as a more meaningful part of your creative journey, as your company's creative journey, and that creative process. And that creative process can make us feel good regardless of what the end result is. And you can kind of think of the outcome as a bonus. Occasionally that creative time comes up with penicillin or Post-it notes or Gmail, but a lot of the a lot of these most profound ideas and new products innovations start out as somewhat unintentional discoveries that just come from wandering around and testing and trying new things. And when you make mistakes, I think it also reveals a lot about your personality, your team's personality, your management's personality, and how they think about resilience. Is making a mistake considered a natural stepping stone to evolving to getting to the right place, or is it considered a setback? And I think getting your employees in your team into that mindset of thinking about mistakes as a I think I'm blanking on the artist, but he used to do all the watercolor, and there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. And getting into that mindset where a mistake is just a building block for the next great thing is really important. So as we've gone through this social distancing, as we've gone through these massive changes in how we work every day, I think it's presented us all with an opportunity to use creativity to imagine a better workplace, try new things, and shake things up a bit as we come out of it and rebuild. And so at Skillshare, we've used this opportunity to go fully remote. So we about 30% of our team was outside of our core New York office when COVID hit. We all obviously went fully remote during the pandemic, but as things are now coming back, we've decided to stay remote. Our office lease in New York expired in December, and we've gone completely with no office. And so we're recreating our workplace around kind of these four pillars of being location agnostic, embracing work-life balance, offering more flexibility, but also accommodating a diversity of lifestyles. I think the new graduate who's 23 and thinks of work as an important part of their social life is very different than, I've got 4 kids, and the idea of spending 3 hours getting back and forth to work on the train, that just eats up a lot of work and family time. So, what I need for my work-life balance and what somebody else in our company needs for theirs is very different. So we're trying to build around that. So we'll be remote first, but we're going to offer shared workspace access for people who don't live in live in a house with an office. They're in a one-bedroom apartment sharing with a roommate. They just can't work next to the roommate all day, every day. So we're trying to find the right balance there. And for us, I think there's a correlation between being fully distributed and that increased productivity that comes with it, but also the employee empowerment and trust. We trust that you're going to get your job done. We trust that you're going to work hard and do the right things. We trust that if you need to disappear for an hour or two during the day, you're going to do that because you've got that flexibility, but you're still going to work. You're still going to do the work later to get whatever it is you need to get done. So I think that trust and the message that sends is really important. And that, the fully distributed model we think of as an equalizer for a lot of day to day. Again, it doesn't matter where you are, what your personal situation is, what your family situation is. We want you to be able to work in a way, in a schedule that accommodates your life needs with what you need to get done as an employee at Skillshare. And I think of building a business, and particularly building a startup, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to come up with a working model that is sustainable and that keeps you happy and healthy and engaged over the long term. And so as we think about reallocating our spending, for us, a New York office, given our current size, was going to cost us about $120,000 US per month. So now that we don't have that pretty significant rent expense, we can reallocate that spending across our employees in a completely different and interesting way. So, where we were spending on rent and maintenance and groceries and a lot of in-person events and then travel to the New York office, now we're going to shift that spend to having flexible workspace that's available when you need it. We're going to bring everybody together for biannual meetups. We don't have to meet in New York. Let's meet in Miami in January when it's cold. Let's meet in Utah during the summer. We can pick somewhere fun and exciting to meet as kind of these big touchstone events. We're shifting a lot of our spending towards learning and development, programming, training, education, creativity fund, investing in social good. So it's amazing how reallocating these dollars. We didn't give up the office to save money. We gave up the office to shift those resources to a more constructive and productive model. And so I think it's something we are certainly very excited about, but I think our team is really excited about as well. So I guess to wrap things up here, we think about this, the quarantine really forced us all to shift into a new paradigm. And, hopefully it doesn't take a global pandemic to get us thinking about new ways to live and work. But in this case, I do think this was a happy accident. We came up with what I think is a much better working model now that things are returning to normal. Your teams have a lot of creativity within them. And again, if you are human, you are creative. So, what can you do in how you work, how you reward, how you compensate, the time you give, the allocation of time to give your people that empowerment and that opportunity to be more creative, to take bigger bets, to explore new things. And if you can do this and you can apply that creative lens, not just to your product or your service, but how you work, how your team works, how you work together, where you work, and that structure of how you put that amazing talent into practice. I think if you can do that, you can open a lot of creativity that will both help you as a manager, but also help your people, and as a result, help the business as well. So thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions. All right, so you're letting me off easy with no questions. Okay. I can give you some more really bad Russian. Yeah. So, well, if there are no questions, I guess would you like to want to summarize or? Oh, sorry. You wanted me to summarize. I thought you were going to summarize in Russian. I apologize. Um, well, I think I sort of wrapped it up here. It's really, again, sort of bringing that creativity to work and putting it in effect day to day, and creating that space will ultimately drive better business results. Um, so yeah, I think I guess happy to give the time back if there are no further questions. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having me. До свидания.
Жажда веселья, жажда путешествий, жажда общения. Утоляй любую жажду с освежающими вкусами Липтон. Мой любимый персик.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.